What exactly, what precisely does it mean to any of us, to anyone, to run Venezuela? That is the $64 million question at the moment, the question on which America's standing in the world hinges on right now. That's after the Trump administration launched a raid capturing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife and brought them to the United States to face criminal charges. Maduro and his wife were arraigned in New York City today on counts of drug trafficking and other crimes. He and his wife pleaded not guilty. He maintains that he is still the legitimate president of Venezuela. Meanwhile, back in Venezuela, the interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, put out a statement offering to work with the U.S., but according to Donald Trump, she's not in charge. Quote, "We're in charge," end quote. That was Donald Trump who said that. Here's how he put it in his own words last night.
Don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
It means we're in charge.
We're in charge. We, the Trump administration, we, the United States of America, that's all we know from his lips. Problem is, it directly contradicts what one of the people he, Donald Trump, says he put in charge of running Venezuela, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Take a listen to that.
When the president was asked yesterday who will be running Venezuela, he said it was you. He said it was the defense secretary. He said it was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Are you running Venezuela right now?
George, I've explained again that the leverage that we have here is the leverage of the quarantine. So that is a Department of War operation, conducting, in some cases, law enforcement functions with the Coast Guard on the seizure of these boats.
We'll coin the phrase hot potato. He said, not me. I'm not running it. The Department of War is running it. It was a law enforcement operation. That's DOJ, last time I checked. So it sounds like he's hoping to pressure Venezuela then into doing what Donald Trump wants Venezuela to do by blockading its oil and resources. He used the word coercion. But that, what Rubio seemed to be tap dancing toward and actually running the country, which Donald Trump says we are doing, are two things that aren't just shades of gray. They're on opposite ends of the spectrum. Lieutenant General Mark Hertling writes this today in The Bulwark, quote, "Regime change fails less often from a lack of resources than from a lack of both planning and responsibility. Over decades of command, I learned what I called the belly button rule for assigning responsibility. When a task is truly hard, complex, risky, politically sensitive, or strategically consequential, a senior leader in government, business, or on the battlefield must be able to point to one person and say, you are in charge. One person, one belly button. Every serious operation requires three things to be unmistakably clear: what must be done, by when or under what conditions, and who is in overall charge of making that happen. None of those three things are clear right now. Not who is in charge, not the timeline, not even the objective. And running Venezuela may, frankly, be an impossible thing for us to do. That's according to the guy who Donald Trump put in charge of his Venezuela policy last time. Here's a guy who had that job, his former envoy, Elliot Abrams.
The United States cannot run Venezuela. The worst thing that we could do, and we may be doing it actually, is to make some kind of deal with the regime's remnants, with the vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, and leave her and the regime in place, except for maybe a change on oil policy. That's conceivable, but that's not our running Venezuela. That's the Maduro regime running Venezuela without Maduro.
Two very different things. As if on cue, Donald Trump on Sunday downplayed the whole matter and issue and urgency of free and fair elections while touting repeatedly the opportunities for oil companies in Venezuela. Watch.
Are you going to demand free and fair elections in the short term in Venezuela?
Well, it depends, what you're talking. We have to do one thing in Venezuela, bring it back. It's a dead country right now. It's been.
Have you spoken with the oil companies about
Yes.
going into Venezuela?
I have.
Which ones? Have you received any commitments?
All of them, basically.
Any commitments from the oil companies?
They want to go in so badly.
Short term, next 2 weeks, what do you need from Delcy Rodriguez? You've threatened Delcy.
Total access. We need total access. We need access to the oil and to other things in their country that allow us to rebuild their country.
Free and fair elections? Nah. Oil? Quote, all the companies want in so badly. We need access to all of it. Now, regardless of what comes next in Venezuela, Trump himself has moved on after revealing all of that. He's issued a litany of threats against more countries far and wide, asked whether there could be an operation against neighboring Colombia, whose president has been critical of Donald Trump. He said this, quote, it sounds good to me, end quote. As for Greenland, a territory governed by NATO ally Denmark, Donald Trump tells The Atlantic this, quote, we need Greenland, end quote. As for Cuba, Donald Trump says it is, quote, ready to fall. What the Trump administration has in store for the United States of America when it comes to Venezuela and the other countries he's named so far, we count at least 3 in the wake of a stunning military operation capturing Venezuela's leader, is where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling's here. He served as the commanding general of the U.S. Army in Europe. He's the author of that piece we read from. Also joining us, former United States Ambassador to Venezuela, James Story. He served in that role from 2018 to 2023. Lucky for us, he is now an MS Now International Affairs analyst. And with me at the table, to keep me honest, senior national security reporter David Rohde is here. He's been covering the story for us all weekend. David, let me do that. If you had a life that kept you away from cable news and you're not following the live blog online, tell us what happened.
On Friday night, the United States military, with a tremendous effort by the CIA, sent in aircraft, took out air defenses across Caracas, and special forces were able to snatch President Maduro and his wife. And it was this amazing operation in terms of the level of intelligence they had. They knew they built a replica of the house he was hiding in and practiced this thing. So there was definitely someone. The reward for Maduro was $50 million. But there was a source, and the Times reported this, that was saying where he was. So it was an amazing operation. I was woken up at, like many of us here, at 1:30 a.m. in the middle of the night. And when the president tweeted out that Maduro and his wife had been captured, it was just stunning. So hats off to the CIA, hats off to the military, an amazing success. And then since then is all the confusion you just summarized so eloquently.
Well, let's stay then when it was brilliant and perfect. What was the point? What was the reason? What was the purpose?
The purpose for the Trump administration was essentially that Maduro was not bowing to President Trump's demands and essentially saying, leave power. This amassing of all these, ships, all the strikes on the drug boats. Mm-hmm. And essentially in the reporting is that Trump was particularly frustrated with Maduro's dancing, that he was sort of defying Trump so openly and not just relinquishing power. So from their sort of view of power politics, showing, I think, Maduro, but many other countries and leaders, that at least in this hemisphere, if you don't listen to Donald Trump, the U.S. could come snatch you.
Ambassador, take us through your analysis of what has happened since that moment. And if you disagree with anything David said, jump in on that too.
David's on the money as always. I mean, the question is, you have a tactical success. What is the strategic play? What's the long-term play? And what's the objective? Is the objective regime change? Well, as Elliot Abrams pointed out, you have the same regime just under different management. It doesn't appear to be the restoration of democracy or a focus on human rights or stopping crimes against humanity or regional stability, but rather access to energy sources. And I think it's incumbent upon the administration to lay out what the plan is, because if we're in charge, it's interesting that just today they're getting ready to put out, I have a source in the country, their National Federal Registry is putting out a notice where they're looking for people who supported the U.S. government in finding Maduro. That would indicate that they very much are cracking down on dissent and looking for people who potentially helped us in this stunning success overnight, Friday into Saturday. That doesn't indicate that we're in charge.
Let me come back to you on this idea that the objective is unclear. Didn't Donald Trump tell us what the objective was? He talked to the oil companies ahead of the operation. He didn't brief Congress. And he said this, quote, all of them, the oil companies, want in so badly. We need access there to their oil for our oil companies. Isn't he screaming from the rooftops what the policy is about?
Well, he certainly laid it out during his post-operation plan. I guess my point is, well, what's the objective is to get access to oil. What is the plan to allow those international companies to go into Venezuela? You have the same regime. You have the same failure of having an independent judiciary. There's absolutely, I find it hard to believe, let me put it this way, that publicly traded companies with boards of directors are going to be willing to put billions, tens of billions of dollars at stake inside of Venezuela unless there is a clear strategy for restoring the institutions in the country and bringing the country into the democratic fold. I find it very difficult. There are billions upon billions of dollars in arbitration awards currently owed to all these companies. So if you're a ConocoPhillips and you're owed $11 billion, you have an arbitration award for $11 billion because of expropriation, is your board of directors going to say, okay, let's put another $20 billion into Venezuela? I don't know. I find it suspect.